Welcome, dearest listener, to this summary episode. I, Dragon, am your storyteller and editor for this collection of tales, which will collate the first story arc of Plummet. For you see, episodes 1 to 19 were adapted from the tale of the Shadowrune, from the original Descent campaign. Before we continue on to the next story, we felt it was time to piece together a compilation of the fates which befell our heroes within our early tales, whilst also allowing myself to take my first steps in editing a full episode. Maybe you are listening to remember these epic tales of high adventure. Maybe you are new here and wish to get caught up quickly. Either way, you are most welcome. But before we begin, I must remind you that these tales contain the entirety of our first story arc. There will, of course, be spoilers if you have not heard these tales before. Thank you for listening. Now, prepare to plummet. Prelude. The throne of the land of Terranoth has long been empty, and whilst several barons would see themselves as the ideal suitor, they have agreed an armistice of convenience over the land. While Terranoth itself is little more than a vast agricultural region, with little, if any, history of excitement, it is still viewed as valuable land by many. Recently, however, there have been reports of unrest, and militia from a neighbouring land have been drafted in as paid mercenaries by Baron Gregory to potentially quell some of these issues towards the city of Arhen. 1. First Blood. The heroes travelled towards the city of Arhen, but before reaching the city, their caravan was flagged down by a wounded soldier. He told them of a vicious band of Ettins who had attacked their caravan, and the potential kidnapping of the Baron's advisor, Lady Thea, who had been researching at the great libraries of Terranoth. The party quickly dispatched the Ettins and opportunistic goblin scavengers, with the Ettin leader, Mauler, struck by a razor-sharp arrow in one of his 4 fiendish eyes. However, the combat was not without consequences, as Tyke, the naive yet fearless young warrior, challenged an Ettin with just his face. Upon which, the Ettin's mighty, massive club smacked him into a tree and the dark realm of unconsciousness. Additionally, Lady Thea was nowhere to be found. Hoping the advisor had made her own way back to Baron Gregory, the party hurried to Arhen, setting up within the barracks of the great city. Following an audience with the Baron, the heroes, having taken the Rin Sixpence, are now members of the Rin Militia and have collected their first bounty by producing Mauler's heads. 2. Your garden variety wolf. The party were sent to talk with the locals, find out what the people were grumbling about. During this, they were interrupted by screams and cries of attack from fleeing villagers. They ran to the top of a hill to see what was going on, to see a small band of goblins with some vicious-looking dogs and flying creatures at their side, kidnapping villagers and dragging them away to the mine. During the battle, Kintara took a vicious blow to the face and lost several teeth. Tyke, ever impulsive, leapt into the pack of dogs and was mauled, having 3 of his toes bitten off by a ravenous canine. Having beaten back the wolves and other creatures, our heroes were tasked with retrieving villagers from the mine itself. Now hampered by his injury, young Tyke was bundled into a wheelbarrow and taken down the dark passage. After a short jaunt through some stark tunnels covered in spider webs that were just too tempting not to set on fire, the party uncovered the trapped villagers. These people, together, had all pointed their accusing fingers at one of their own, a simple farmer called Frederick. They all brassly crowed that he was a magic man and was the one the goblins were after. A tense situation followed, where the heroes pressed on into the final room, hearing screams of torture echo from the poor man, who, as the party approached, confessed he was in fact a Shadowbinder. Bursting through the door with all the grace they could muster, the party attempted to free Frederick, but they were not prepared. A fat goblin grabbed the man from his entombed fate amidst hundreds of beetles and dragged his screaming form towards the door. A lucky arrow from Whispers caused this returned creature to drop and howl, with several other goblins rushing to his aid from the room. What was left, however, were two enormous creatures bulging at the seams with bugs, preventing the party from immediately following. It was at this point, alas, that Frankie, in an attempt to ignite the monstrous opposition, cast a fireball that would cause the chandelier to collapse atop poor Tyke. With the choice of letting him burn to death or removing his leg to save him, the party dragged the now one-legged Tyke from the room. Once the fire had died down, the party ran to the final door, casting it open and following the injured goblin. It was then they discovered a pentagram burned into the ground and a strong stench of sulphur. It appeared the fat goblin had eluded them with his prey. 3. Tyke, Etin Slayer. The adventurers were sent to the castle at Darien to consult with Baron Gregory's advisor, Sir Palamon. Being told of Palamon's wisdom and knowledge, they felt sure he could help explain the mysterious kidnapping of villagers by the fat goblin. Soon after arriving in Darien, the town was besieged by Ettins, goblins, and wolves. Upon learning of warning beacons, Kintara tried to barricade the town gate with their cart, succeeding in mightily offending the mule, who was still yoked to it. Frankie attempted to shoot fire to break down a tower door to reach a warning beacon, and managed to set himself alight in the process. Following a short stop, drop and roll, he succeeded in lighting the warning beacon, whereupon his vanity at achieving the difficult shot was brought short by wolves who chased him back within the walls. After the Ettins destroyed the walls, Tyke fearlessly ran at them, emitting a roar which actually intimidated not only the Ettins but some of the goblins too. As one Ettin and several goblins fell to the blades and arrows of the party, another Ettin ran deep into Castle Darien and began damaging the interior wall. Following the noise, they came upon a duel between a man in gold armour and one in dark. As they asked for Sir Palamon, the golden armoured man lowered his sword and replied yes. But at that moment, his opponent's sword flew through the air and severed Sir Palamon's neck. As his head hit the ground, the man in dark armour disappeared, cackling, and all his vile creatures too. This left only the party and a group of reanimate skeletons, which always reform, so they hid one arm from each in the tower with the warning beacons before leaving, believing this would be enough to distract the skeletons for the time being. 4. Of Heads and Hat Boxes. Following Sir Palamon being killed, Baron Gregory sent the group to the Cathedral of Kelos, located deep in the Karth Mountains. As they approach, a fleeing villager warns them that the dead have risen. Being good, stalwart heroes, they decide to press on with haste and attempt to rid such a holy place of its foul taint. What they uncovered was a nest of risen dead. Zombies stalked the holy ground and had destroyed the entrance to the most sacred cathedral. However, while stopping to save a trapped local from a tree, young Tyke, already limited in mobility due to his missing leg, was set upon by these zombies and took several deep bites. Worried about their companion, the party hurriedly attempted to beat back the horde of the undead, but in their haste several arrows found the regrettable mark of the prone Tyke's nether regions. Caked in blood, Missing an ear and other more vital parts of his anatomy, Tyke soldiered on and accompanied the others into the cathedral itself, where it quickly became obvious that the Cardinal was the focus of this unholy attack. A mysterious figure played puppet master to these undead, stalking round the outside of the room and raising more reanimates to overwhelm the Cardinal. As the party opened fire on this mysterious individual, he called forth something truly unspeakable to defend him: a bone horror. Despite valiant attempts to reach this man, regardless of his enormous death-dealing guardian, a quick decision was made to attempt to drop a chandelier upon him. But alas, and for the second time in their short history, the chandelier was to be the downfall for the party, crashing from the ceiling through the Cardinal, killing him instantly before the fetid hordes feasted on his still twitching corpse. The mysterious man seemed to grab something from the body and ran out the door, quickly chased by Kintara, although to little avail, as once more the ability to travel by ritual seemed to provide an escape for this fiend. As our heroes licked their wounds and discussed what to do next, the infection from the zombie bites finally took their young Tyke, and as the last drop of humanity faded from his mortal soul, he was beheaded by the grieving party. Tyke's head, which continued to gnash and writhe with zombified fervour, was placed within a small hatbox. This allowed Igneous to keep Tyke as part of the party while minimising the risk of being bitten. Before they could return to Baron Gregory with the tragic news, they met again the local they had saved from a tree earlier, a warlock called Ebony Darkness, who agreed to join them and take Tyke's place as a member of the party. 5. Here, Piggy Piggy. Tasked to be guards of a banquet during the masquerade ball held by Baron Theodore, the party journeyed to the Baron's house to guard a salad bar. This was until Ebony Darkness, fringe blowing in the wind inside, decided to attempt to practice his necromancy by resurrecting the roasted pig. Unfortunately for him, he somehow succeeded at this, and the resulting reanimate pig charged around the room, destroying all the crockery while angrily charging at the party. After successfully trapping said pig in the kitchen, the party discover they have been locked in the dining room. Realising he could raise corpses from the ground, Ebony Darkness summoned a large hole in the floor, which he decided to investigate, while everyone else continued their attempts to break down the door. After several forcible attempts, they hear a strange commotion on the other side of the door. It appears that bandits have attempted to take over the ball. As their door was opened to force the terrified guests into somewhere more containable, the party were freed and fought back the bandit threat, keeping a single bandit as prisoner to tell them of their dastardly plot. Ebony, however, encountered the reanimated pig once more, and while his skeleton guardian attempted to fight back against this pig, his arm was broken in several places, and he chose best to run once again. After much discussion and the releasing of all the guests, the party descended into the depths of the hall, where they encountered the most difficult of challenges, a magically locked door. Deciding that it would be difficult to open, they walked back upstairs, determined to use Ebony Darkness' new hole-digging ability to dig a hole past the locked door. Unfortunately, this resulted in resurrecting several dead guards who, unnew to this new life of undeath, complained bitterly to Ebony that they were confused and unhappy. Following a short period of dealing with the problems of the newly undead, the party eventually managed to dig down into the next chamber, encountering more guards and finding a passage to the vault. As they made their way along this passage, the sound of bone on stone came from above, and Ebony Darkness ran to hide in a cupboard as the reanimate pig reared its ugly body once more, goring a guard to death. before a desperate undo spell was finally cast upon it by Ebony. Despite surviving the horrors of their own creation, the party felt joy as they successfully managed to save Baron Theodore, even if the wicked Lady Eliza had somehow escaped with the contents of the safe. 6. Boulders and Beasts. Following the safe return of Baron Theodore, the party thought they would have some time to recover. However, Baron Zakareth sought them out to declare that deliveries from the silver mines at Greystone Keep had ceased. This is #1 priority for the heroes to remedy. Bustled out the door and onto a cart, they made their way along the narrow ravine towards Greystone Keep, stopping only for Igneous and Kintara to clear a makeshift barricade that seemed to be blocking the road. Suddenly a rumbling was heard, and massive boulders began rolling down the sides of the valley. It seems goblin treachery was afoot, as the party's horse, driver and cart were all crushed beneath these mammoth stones. The goblins themselves made easy prey for the heroes, and the intimidating growl of Kintara led to some of the goblins revealing that something was indeed underway at the mines. The heroes ran onward, determined to rout any evil that was to be found in the mines. But as they arrived at Greystone Keep, they found it seemingly abandoned, with mine carts filled to the brim with silver ore being completely untouched. Using their combined knowledge of tracking, the party eventually uncovered the goblins digging at the base of the Grand Waterfall, with a large dragon hybrid flying overhead, yelling at them to dig faster. Realising that they need to attack the one in charge rather than the underlings, Whispers threw a bolas at the dragon hybrid, entrapping his wings and sending him spiralling from the skies into the ground below. The hybrid rose from this crash and called for reinforcements. 2 enormous, tentacled behemoths arose from the waterfall and began attacking the party, while the goblins continued to dig around them, and the party engaged these beasts. Kintara ran straight for the dragonkin, striking him repeatedly with heavy blows, while Sylvian Whispersong, the beat poet bard, attempted to soothe the 2 enormous savage beasts with a song accompanied by his djembe. The beasts, untouched by his musical verse, tore an arm clean from its socket and devoured it in front of him, leaving the screaming bard bitter about the critical response. It was at this point that the goblins seemed to cluster. They had found what they were looking for, and were attempting to bring it to the Dragonborn. Kintara managed to intercept the group and retrieved what appeared to be a large shield made from some form of scale. The dragon hybrid, broken and bloody, was dragged away by the goblins, barely managing to escape with his life. Returning by foot to Baron Gregory with this strange artifact, the heroes hope to learn more. 7. Rumour and Runestones. Following an emergency council meeting between the Barons Gregory, Zakareth and Theodore, the party were informed that they were tasked with a dangerous assignment, retrieving a sacred artifact and return it to the city for safekeeping. The problem, however, was that this sacred artifact, one half of a runestone, was secreted away at the top of a waterfall in a long-forgotten cave. Baron Zakareth insisted that he journey with the party, providing both support and encouragement so that everything was done properly. As they began climbing the mountain, the rotund Baron claimed he just couldn't make it and they should go on ahead without him. A treacherous journey lay ahead, as the party climbed the narrow paths leading past many small waterfalls, and eventually came to a cave at the summit, which contained the relic vault behind a magically locked door. Opening the door with all the grace and care they are renowned for, the party seemed to trigger the release of a hot, sticky, black fluid that began to coat the floor of the outer room, pushing them inside to hurriedly discover the artifact before they became trapped. After much searching and a small yet terrifying encounter with a monkey skeleton, The party discovered a collection of boxes which seemed to shake violently when disturbed. When the boxes were opened by over-eager party members searching for the runestone, a bright light burst forth from the box, engulfing the hapless heroes and turning their hair to the colour of snow. And the mirror within no longer showed a reflection of them or their newly changed appearance. Slightly disturbed, but determined to carry on with their mission, the party eventually found the runestone, and despite triggering several more traps within the vault, they fled from the room as it too slowly filled with the hot, viscous black liquid. Stopping only briefly to carve an intricate copy of the stone, the party began to make their way towards the exit, only to be confronted by the inevitable betrayal of Baron Zakareth. Zakareth demanded the stone, seeking it for his master, and following some quick trickery by whispers, the party deceived the rotund Baron into jumping down the waterfall after what he believed to be the runestone. Thinking himself above the feeble rule of gravity, the Arakoa Kubrok attempted to descend the mountain, plummeting to the ground and badly injuring his arm. The ground rumbled, and a water elemental arose from a nearby pool. After several attempts to beat back the immense creature, it was temporarily dispersed enough that Sylvain could engineer his magnificent plan, drinking the water elemental. The rest of the party fought valiantly as they descended the narrow mountain trail, but unfortunately, while attempting to subdue a pack of wolves, Frankie's never-predictable fireball attempts caused the ground to tremble, and poor Sylvain fell, landing with a wet thunk on the ground below. Maybe he would have survived had not a plummeting wolf landed atop his broken body, extinguishing the life of the djembe-playing bard. What this meant for the water elemental is unknown. As the party rushed down the mountain, they found only his broken body with a final blood-streaked poem. Thinking he would have preferred to be left to nature, the party left the body in the woods, stopping only for Frankie to acquire the fallen bard's djembe. As they returned to the cart, the final stand was made by the minions of Zakareth, but they were easily beaten back by the determination of the heroes. And as Zakareth fled the battlefield using the pentagram of teleportation, the party rejoiced and returned to the city, deciding that it would be best for the original to not be kept in the bowels of the castle. Igneous sent the original runestone by post to his family, handing the delicately carved copy to Baron Gregory, who declared it a victory for the powers of good. 8. The Searching of the Spire. After the sinister betrayal by Baron Zakareth, Baron Gregory wished the heroes to examine Zakareth's mountain outpost that overlooked the city, taking with them a strange new companion by the name of Hugh Man. The trek was a long one, even by wagon, but eventually they came to a pair of bridges leading across a chasm to the empty-looking outpost that once housed Baron Zakareth. A yelp drew their attention, and a small Eton charged its way towards them, being easily dispatched by the blades of the heroes. Unfortunately, this drew the ire of two enormous mountain Etons, who seemed upset that their kin had been cut down with such disdain. The beasts roared fierce blood cries, which alerted the goblins upon the other end of the bridge. Would they be able to cross before the goblins cut the ropes to the bridge? Thinking speed was the best option, Hugh Man and Igneous attempted to sprint across the bridge, while the rest of the party stood their ground with the Etons. Good intentions shone through as Igneous attempted to push back the goblins with his crossbow, only for the weapon to find its devastating mark on the back of Hugh Man's skull, concussing the shadowy figure and nearly knocking him from the bridge itself. Proclaiming something beyond the grassy knoll had its eye on Hugh, Igneous grabbed the floundering figure and assisted him to the other side. Slaying Etons has become easier for the party, but although they managed to slay the first of these great beasts with ease, the second just would not die, eventually striking a final, dying blow with a vicious swing of his club, catching Kintara on the side of the skull and dropping the Dragonborn to his knees with blood pouring from the side of his head. Although the goblins managed to destroy the first of the two bridges, they were easily dispatched, with Hugh Man accidentally pushing one into Igneous and almost toppling the dwarf off the edge into the chasm below. Following minor arguments and treacherous bridge crossings, the group entered the outpost. Discarded weapons lay all around, but no bodies? What sorcery is this? After examining several rooms, the party found nothing but a few wraiths hanging around the chandeliers and an enormous blue metal scythe that had seemingly been discarded in the middle of the room. The blade seemed to call out to Hugh Man. He desired it for his own and ran forth to claim it. The scythe moved as it was disturbed. With a spiral of bones arose a mammoth bone horror, wielding the scythe in its eternal grip. Frankie, at this point, did what Frankie does best and set the beast alight with his fire staff, while the desperate Hugh Man squawked in anguish as he continued frantic attempts to rid the beast from the weapon and claim its shiny blade for himself. As the massive scythe cleaved through the party time and time again, including leaving a vicious leg wound on Kubrok, Hugh Man's determination paid off, and the massive weapon was ripped free from the beast's grasp, allowing it to be dispatched more easily. The party pushed onwards, finding a torture chamber of sorts which held a single prisoner. The farmer that they had failed to save from the cave before now hung before them from a torture rack, babbling to himself. He had gone truly mad, but maybe Baron Gregory could decipher some of these ramblings. 9. With all due carelessness. Following the previous week's retrieval of Frederick, the maddened farmer seemed to be babbling about Sir Arkite's tomb. Baron Gregory felt it best that this was checked out, so tasked the heroes to go through the sewers to get to it. They refused to soil themselves in the sewers, and instead took a 2-day-long cart trip around. When they eventually arrived, they found a dark, foul-smelling tomb. Bickering arose once more, until it was decided that Kubrok and Hugh Man would be at the front of the party as it ventured beneath the earth. Once Hugh Man had carefully descended the stairs, the rest of the party followed, triggering all 3 traps on the stairwell, turning the stairs into a slope, a cascade of oil to be poured all over the party, and a hidden door to grind open, containing zombies. In sheer desperation, the party flailed at the zombies with the only thing they had to hand, a lit torch, resulting in setting the oil alight and singeing several members of the hapless party as they attempted to defend themselves. Once the chaos was over, a second room was discovered containing 3 hanging ropes. Pulling the middle of these ropes caused a beam of sunlight to spew into the room, casting away the dark from the ancient tomb in front of them. A spectre arose from the tomb in the form of a smiling knight wearing a crown with a sword on his belt. While attempting to investigate this ghost, Hugh Man stumbled and accidentally pulled the left rope, opening a trapdoor and bringing a large horde of zombies into the room. Kintara decided to grab the sword from the spectre's belt, ripping it away from him and causing the ghost to seemingly age quickly before turning to dust. Noticing the crown was also discarded, Kintara decided to wear the crown, instantly collapsing to the ground as a torrent of psychic shrieks rattled through him. At this point, a stranger appeared in the doorway. He grabbed the sword from the temporarily prone Kintara and ran from the chamber. Frankie, while attempting to stop this new invader, managed to burn 2 fingers off his own hand, dropping his staff and shrieking in pain. The invader, with the help of several Ettins, was able to escape past the burning former staircase, and while Kintara, Whispers and Frankie gave chase, Hugh, Man, Igneous and Kubrok stayed in the chamber to deal with the zombies. It was at this point Hugh Man, drunk on bloodthirst, swung his mighty scythe. The blade sliced not only through Kubrok's arm, but also managed to castrate poor Igneous, leaving the dwarf buckled in pain and loss. The chasing party fared little better as Frankie, while chasing the invader to another cave, accidentally stood in a rabbit hole, collapsing with a sickening crunch and breaking his pelvis. While Kintara valiantly battled against the Ettins, and Igneous screamed abuses at Hugh Man for his recent loss, Kubrok threw his spear into the pack of zombies before deciding to follow it down into the trapdoor. Watching the Arakoa being set upon by zombies seemed to break Hugh from his bloodlust, and he ran from the chamber, bringing the cursing dwarf with him. The invader, by this point, had opened a seal hidden deep inside the second cave, releasing a gaggle of bewildered-looking mages who seemed surprised to see the sun again, led by a mage who introduced himself later as Aplex Nyctophilia. Whispers chased down the invader as he reached the second seal, catching him with an arrow to the hip, spinning him around and causing him to drop the sword. With the final Ettins dispatched and the invader slain, the party leave the second seal closed and take the mages back to meet with Baron Gregory. 10. The Clumsy Cave Caper. The party were informed by Baron Gregory that a scrap of parchment was found in Frederick's possession. It showed a map depicting woods to the south. Hence, they were sent to investigate and hopefully find something useful against the Overlord, Baron Zachareth. Kintara, while attempting to be useful and improve Frankie's manoeuvrability, attached wheels to Frankie's shoes. This didn't help as such, as Frankie fell and broke his arm. Undeterred by this, the party quickly left whilst Hugh Man was otherwise engaged. Arriving near the forest location, the group comes upon a small band of goblins who also seem to be searching for this cave. Deciding it best to follow them, they found the cave beside a large waterfall. Leaping forth to dispatch the goblins, Igneous accidentally managed to shoot Kintara in the face, blinding the Dragonborn in his right eye. Startled by the attack, the goblins summoned harpies and a Meriod, which were dispatched with minimal difficulty, despite the Meriod breaking Kintara's left arm. Following this combat, the party found an intriguing bell on one of the goblins, which bore a waterfall motif. Entering the cave, the party delicately checked for traps before exploring further. Their exploration came to a sudden halt upon the discovery of a gigantic iron golem patrolling the hallway. Lacking the required password, the party attempted to guess, leading to Kintara's left arm being ripped from its socket by the immense golem. Lacking the required password, the party attempted to guess, leading to Kintara's left arm being ripped from its socket by the immense golem. Understandably retreating, the party searched for clues to bypass this guardian, eventually finding a note containing a partial solution. The party uncovered the crumpled remains of its former master. Continuing their search, they came across a comfortable room with a lit fireplace, above which was a powerful-looking staff. Frankie, distracted by the freely available alcohol upon the table, became quickly incapacitated, leaving an awkward Igneous to pick up the staff. This movement spawned an apparition of a tiny wizard, who demanded they return the staff before commanding the golem to execute them. Fleeing with the staff, and carrying the inebriated Frankie, a single fireball from the new staff incinerated the entire library. Content with their new weapon, the party returned to the city to nurse their wounds. 11. Rice and Regret. Following last week's daring escapades, The party decided best to put Frankie to bed and let him rest his newly healed bones, while Baron Gregory introduces them to a tabaxi conjurer called Jasper, who has been drafted in to join them. It seems scouts have returned with dire news. One of the great enemy's lieutenants has been spotted at the standing stones outside of the city. Rumours abound that this fiend has uncovered one of the hidden archives and must be stopped. After a short intermission, whereby Hugh Mann bought a new cart, the party set off for these stones. Upon arrival, it was discovered that there was, indeed, foul play afoot, as zombies lurked around an opening that had appeared amidst the standing stones. Unfortunately, a stray arrow from Igneous bid a final farewell to Q Kintara as the arrow pierced his skull, dropping the Dragonborn dead. As luck would have it, a nearby elven ranger called Yvain Ingrus appeared and assisted them in taking down the zombie threat. After careful planning, the party descended beneath the earth into the musty old archive. Discovering several large cauldrons containing pudding rice, the clumsy-footed party activated an ancient mechanism, causing boiling water to fill these vats and pour the sticky boiling liquid all over them. Once they had traversed the now lake of rice, the party continued exploring, eventually uncovering a chamber where a figure wielding a staff stood, seemingly casting a ritual. Deciding it best to shoot first, the arrows pierced the back of the man, causing him to drop the staff. He span around to face them, emitting blood-chilling howls and growing with rage into an enormous werewolf as zombies clawed their way from the earth around him. As the party valiantly attempted to beat back the undead threat, Whispers snuck behind the werewolf, shanking him with a blessed sword, and as a final arrow from Igneous' crossbow pierced his skull, the werewolf collapsed to the ground, oozing black, foul-smelling blood. The ground began to rumble. Something was drawing near. The party all attempted to hobble their way out of the archive, as a massive bone horror arose from beneath, wielding another of the massive blue-tinged scythes. With escape seemingly difficult due to the slippery, sloped exit, Hugh Mann attempted to have a final stand against the Behemoth, but was saved when a lucky arrow from Whispers found the tiniest of marks amidst the giant beast, and it was slain outright. Nursing their wounds, the party returned to the city of Arren. 12. Of Reason and Repetition. The party returned to Arren, leaving Igneous behind to bury the body of Q Kintara, and meeting up with Frankie before seeking an audience with Baron Gregory. The Baron informed them that their next line of questioning would be to interview Baron Zachareth's former steward, Heinrich. Upon journeying to Heinrich's country house, which lay beside a lake near the city, the party encountered a rather bizarre merchant who offered to trade information for blood samples from the party. Initially refusing, the party moved towards the house, finding only a scene of slaughter. Deciding to follow a blood trail leading from the house, Ylvain noticed some bandits lying in wait. Pushing forward Hugh Mann to lead the charge, combat ensued, and during the melee, he lost his grip on the scythe, sending the spinning blade arcing through the party on its journey to embed itself into the wall of the house, removing one of Whisper's fingers and the entirety of Ylvain's left arm. Undeterred by this bloodshed, the party finished off the bandits and continued following along the blood trail. They came upon a clearing where the merchant they had met earlier was sitting. Once again, they were offered the chance to exchange their own blood for information. Hugh Mann decided that the best method was to sell the man Ylvain's still twitching arm before he and Frankie also donated blood for answers. With the merchant somewhat content and directions received, the party continued to a well-concealed cottage, easily discovering the hidden trapdoor leading to a passage beneath. Venturing down into the corridor and dark stairwell, they came across a man in chains, covered in blood with bite marks upon his neck. While staring at the 2 small puncture marks upon the man's neck, the party all at once announced that they knew what fiend had caused this. Werewolves! Deciding it best to release him, a sinister feminine voice whispered behind their ears that this man was weak, not worth their time to free. They should just leave. Deciding they knew best, the party restrained the squawking Hugh man from attacking the enslaved man while they continued to release him from his chains. A devilish grin appeared on the man's face and he grew fangs and claws, then attempted to attack Jasper, but a lucky stab with his lightning wand later, the creature exploded into a blood-red mist. After dispatching this fiend, the room shifted and blurred, becoming a dusty old cellar with a locked door ahead of them. Upon discovering a key in the man's tattered clothing, the locked door was opened, revealing a similar set of stairs. Journeying down these stairs, the party experienced the same situation they had uncovered momentarily before. Another attempt to free the man resulted in the same voice speaking up again, informing them that there was no point and they should just leave. Ignoring the voice, they broke him free of the chains, but alas, the devilish grin returned and the man attacked, severing Jasper's leg from his body with devastating claws before once more exploding into red mist and the room spinning. After opening the door and discovering the same scene again, the party decided this time to kill the man outright, and as his body slumped to the floor, the voice spoke one final time. "What a pity. Don't you know that 3rd time is the charm?" Realising they are now trapped in this cycle, the party called desperately upon the merchant, promising him 5 more blood samples in return for their release. The merchant produced a contract which Hugh Man, despite being unable to read, signed on behalf of the party, granting them their release before returning to the city of Arren. 13. Skulls and Scorch Marks. The party were summoned by Baron Gregory, who desperately required their assistance as an impressive woman had taken up residence in his great hall, until he agreed to find why her son, a maid from the city's library, had not only not come home for tea, but had stayed out all night. Gregory quickly informed the party of the suspected plight of this mage, and sent them swiftly out to retrieve him, in the hopes of getting rid of this dear woman. One quick journey through the sewers later, the party discovered what they believed to be the young man's trail leading to a darkened cave with a grumpy group of Ettins patrolling outside. Thinking it best to distract these beasts, Hugh Man hurled the rabbit he had been keeping under his hat, startling not only the Ettins but the rabbit itself. And as the lumbering beasts gave chase, a single Ettin remained to guard the entrance. It was at this point that fire became involved, and as the fire rained down, igniting this poor Ettin, the others returned and began beating him with clubs in a vain attempt to extinguish the flames. Choosing to blame the fire pit they had been eating around for the spontaneous combustion, the Ettins began beating it with their clubs, catching them alight and hurling them into the woodlands in which the party were hiding. Within a few short moments, and some badly targeted fireballs from Frankie, the entire forest was ablaze. While woodland creatures and Ettins alike ran from the fire, a larger boss Ettin appeared and began barking orders at his flailing underlings, while also drawing the wrath of the party. Following the death of this Ettin, with only minor losses, such as Frankie's ear, the party continued into the cave itself, finding an artifact of bone upon the dead Ettin and one of gold amidst the gloom. Retrieval of the gold piece caused a massive stone door to slide away, revealing a hidden stairway that brought the party access to an ancient set of stairs and statues that lay within a concealed valley beyond. Climbing these stairs caused several orbs upon the statues to glow strange lights, and upon the top lay curious contraptions and an enormous sarcophagus between. Knowing exactly what they had to do, the party set about placing the artifacts. This way, that way, still no reaction. This is, of course, until they attempted to open the sarcophagus. The lid slid away and a rumble was heard deep beneath the ground. The undead had been released. Deciding that running was the best idea, the party ran for the city walls, where they could shoot the undead menace from range. But although they returned safely to the castle, what horrors have they truly released? 14. Lava, Luck, and Loss. The party noticed an alarming number of zombies, and while wondering how best to deal with them, the blood merchant appeared unexpectedly and informed them that for a little blood, he could tell them the location of an artifact that would disperse the zombies from the castle. Deciding this option the lesser of two evils, Frankie acquired a drunken man to serve as tribute. Having withdrawn his payment, the merchant informed the party of a cave to the south, containing the ruined skull of Belthier's brother. Travelling south, they encountered the cave with an ancient iron door with unlit braziers. A passage to the right emitted very hot air, while the left passage felt cold and damp. Deciding to investigate the hot passage first, they began to descend, and as the hot air became nigh unbreathable, the space opened into a cavern with several small lava pits. At the opposite end lay a small, green, glowing runestone, but between it and the party were several enormous flame elementals and a gaggle of fire imps. Realising the gravity of the situation, Jasper sprung into action, using his feng shui powers to bring anger to the room, successfully distracting the flame elementals and imps. This allowed Elvain to sneak up to the runestone, take it, and return to the party without incident. Returning to the ancient door, they used the green runestone to light one of the two braziers. Descending the second passage, they encountered thick, sticky spider webs. The party attempted to push past until they smelled burning and realised their torch had accidentally set the webs alight. After much frantic running around to avoid also being set ablaze, the party continued down the passage. Eventually this led to a room containing several gigantic spiders and hundreds of large spider eggs. Jasper attempted to use lightning on the eggs, but set some on fire, thus attracting the attention of a gigantic adult spider. While defending himself, Jasper misfired with his staff. The lightning took off not only his own, but also Frankie's arm and injured Elvain. The spider picked up Jasper and began to encase him in webbing. Despite their best efforts, the party failed to free him before the spider began to leave with its new prize. A lucky arrow from Igneous pierced the creature's abdomen, causing it to drop Jasper. While all this was happening, Whispers had been carefully sneaking around the room to collect a pink runestone, similar to the green one they found earlier. After retrieving Jasper, the party returned to the ancient door. With the second brazier lit, the ancient machinery crunched into action and the door opened, revealing a waterfall beside a steep path where running water flowed around several sharp stones. The party gingerly attempted to descend the path, but Whisper's tabaxi grace failed her momentarily, and she fell down the slope, breaking her leg in the process. After helping Whispers, the party crossed the treacherous terrain and had to skirt around multiple sinkholes. Igneous gets his lower leg ripped off trying to get to the skull. Elvain then manages to reach the skull, after which there is a sinister rumbling all around. In their rush to escape, the steep climb to the door is once again dangerous, as Jasper fell and landed against a rock. Most unfortunately, a sharp promontory on the rock once again leads to a full castration happening to a party member. However, Jasper got off lightly as Ylvain slipped, bounced down the mountain, and ended up face down in a large pool of blood. Realising that recovering her body could lead to further injury or death, the party carefully go back through the door and travel back to Arren. Once back in the city, with the wounds treated and bones set, Igneous makes a groin prosthetic for Jasper. Sadly, he forgot to amend his design to account for Jasper's fur. Fitting the device caused a terrible smell of burnt hair, but the other prosthetics were all very successful. 15. Auras and Observers. The party awoke to the sound of commotion. It seemed the castle was in uproar as the dragon skull they had claimed the week before had been taken. Following a discussion with Baron Gregory, who assigned them a new dwarf to assist their endeavours, they investigated the scene of the crime, following the trail to outside of their own window, discovering that they themselves had been robbed. Although the thief hadn't taken much, he did elope with the large-scale shield once wielded by Kukantara and Hugh Mann's cart. After another short deal with the blood merchant, the party managed to discover where the thieving fiend had chosen as his hiding spot. The party then travelled to the aforementioned ruins of an ancient keep. After slight problems with the portcullis, they managed to enter, discovering 3 small buildings. The first contained a library of books and a pulsating purple orb. While attempting to find useful materials, Frankie was accidentally covered in golden magical dust, returning his body to a previous state and rejuvenating both his missing arm and missing ear. In a quick-thinking attempt to abuse this dust, the newest arrival, Arnold Whitesocks, grabbed Igneous and rolled him like a rolling pin in the dust in a desperate attempt to heal the surly dwarf of his missing limbs. Unfortunately to no avail. Upon discovery of the keep's infirmary, the party also discovered a hidden trapdoor which led deep underground. Within this dark and dusty chamber, Belthier the Dragonkin busied himself in archaic magic. Deciding best to take the Dragonkin out while he was distracted, Hugh Mann attempted to sneak up behind him but stumbles. The noise startled Belthier, who cast a shield around himself and used ancient magics to reactivate 3 of the chamber's stone guardians. After throwing rocks at Belthier through the shield, the party assumed the shield was little more than a special effect, with Hugh Mann deciding to punch the shield to prove this hypothesis, resulting in the frantic Birdman watching his entire forearm be dissolved by the powerful magic. As the shield began to grow larger, the party thought it best to run, and while Whispers managed to lasso the Dragonkin, he proved too strong for her, and his attempts to pull her towards the shield caused him to stumble forward as she released the rope, incinerating his own leg to a stump as it penetrated the magic shield. The party continued to run, and as they got clear of the ruin itself disappeared amidst a purple flash, and before them stood an almighty shadow dragon. "Thank you for freeing me for a second time," declared the dragon, before taking to the skies on his great wings towards the city of Arren. 16. Dragons and Drama. The party hurried to return to the city of Arren from the tower where they had released the dragon. As they approached the walls, they became aware of a thick layer of zombies surrounding the city. The party adapted their cart, so the horse would be pushing from the back, and Hugh Mann, with his massive scythe, would be at the front. Unfortunately, the trundling cart proved unstable, and the hapless Arakoa slipped from his post and ended up being dragged under the heavy wheels of the cart and hooves of the horse. Deciding she could do better, Whispers took up the scythe post, only to suffer a similar fate, as the broken body of Hugh Man and slightly less broken form of Whispers rolled free of the cart. Jasper attempted to use his lightning staff, somehow managing to explode the cart, sending the horse flying before coming to land with a sickening crack on the broken form of Hugh Man, finally killing him. The now burning cart proved a distraction for the undead, and the party were able to slip past the horde and enter the castle. Deciding they had already seen enough, they headed straight for the pub. What met them there was a crazed mage who had polymorphed all the patrons into various creatures. As the babbling, giggling mage pulled out a wand and turned Arnold Whitesocks into a pelican, the party quickly acted to try and subdue the foe. Several minutes and magic wands later, the party managed to accidentally teleport the mage through the wall, sending him plummeting to his death, before finding a method to cure the frantically flapping Arnold. Now armed with several weird and wonderful wands to deal with all the fuckery afoot in the city, the party ventured on, finding the entire population had indeed been polymorphed into creatures. Unfortunately, these subjects did not last long, as Kareen the Elongated, a mage polymorphed into a giraffe, channeled his magic, causing several of these beasts to twitch violently before exploding like balloons, cascading the surrounding walls in blood and viscera. Deciding the city was doomed, and that maybe the best thing to do was to line their own pockets, they headed for the main hold, finding a strange shadowy figure banging upon the door. After much discussion, another polymorph spell on Arnold, and an attempt to frostbolt this bizarre individual, it transpired that this was, in fact, the dragon in human shadow form, as he became again a dragon. Angered by the attempts to pacify him, the dragon landed on the roof and breathed in deeply. While the rest of the party got the hint and scarpered, Kareen stood staring helplessly at the dragon, transfixed by fear, as a torrent of shadow flame engulfed him, leaving naught but embers. Agreeing that this dragon was a massive threat, and the best way to disperse the threat was to appeal to his human side, the party eventually convinced the dragon to switch to his human form and let them supply him with the thing he had always wanted most: purple trousers. As the shopping continued, the dragon seemed quite content with the party, beginning to seem convinced that he did not need to release his father from the Eternal Crypt. However, the blood merchant took his chance to strike, knocking down the dragon while the party looked on and pleaded for him to back off. The merchant harvested several vials of thick black blood before reluctantly releasing the figure, reminding the party they still owed him. Rising from injury and feeling enraged, the dragon awoke with a fierce roar, and while Jasper distracted the beast, Frankie and Igneous ran to join Arnold with the Baron, while Whispers remained in the shadows. 17. Panic at the post office. Following their altercation with the Shadow Dragon, most of the party reconvened in the main hall alongside Baron Gregory. Here, the Baron introduced them to Danny Satchel, a prophetical figure from the finance department who would join the party. Gregory was adamant that the Shadow Dragon was on the back foot, as it needed to get into the hall and deal with an entire division of the Baron's finest troops before it got near the runestone. Before any could explain, a scout reported to the Baron that the Shadow Dragon and his mages were in the midst of destroying the city post office, which had all but closed due to the need for postal carts elsewhere in the city. It didn't take long for the party to convince the aging Baron that rune stones were mythical things that could replicate and teleport of their own free will, and that maybe there was mischief afoot. Upon arrival, they found a burning ruin where the post office once stood. The Baron ordered the immediate execution of 2 mages who had been skulking around the ruin, casting purple fireballs and ripping open crates. Using the power of Feng Shui, Danny Satchel narrowed down the selection of remaining runes, and through blind luck, the party found a box with Igneous's handwriting on the side. The runestone throbbed with power as they removed it, and despite his best efforts, Danny Satchel could do little damage to the stone. As if hearing that chaos needed its mistress, the blood merchant arrived in the doorway, offering a runic hammer in exchange for his sanguine needs. Whispers sneakily crept up behind him and attempted to pick his pocket of some of the vials of dragon blood he had taken. Unfortunately, her delicate fingers found only a strong mousetrap, cleaving fingers from her paw and filling the merchant's pocket with her blood. Grinning from ear to ear at this new sample, the merchant handed over the hammer, and as the sorrowful whispers bandaged her paw, Danny brought his full weight to bear upon the runestone, which, instead of shattering, seemed to drain its essence into the hammer, causing strong runes to glow all the way along the shaft, and the party to wonder what had they done. Exiting the ruins, the party decided they needed to take down the dragon once and for all, grudgingly giving another sample to the blood merchant in exchange for some razor-sharp arrows. But how would they draw the dragon in? With an offer of free purple shoes, of course. The dragon appeared in his humanoid form to claim these, and the party attempted diplomacy once more, before a bark of "Fire!" shattered the peace, and a volley of arrows flew, piercing the chest of the beast and causing it to stumble and fall. As the party once again attempted to defend the humanoid from attack, the shadows switched places and the dragon landed upon the rooftops, roaring and drawing in air for a deep purple flame breath. Arnold Whitesocks felt this was his chance to shine, drawing forth his bow and managing to shoot the dragon with the razor-sharp arrows. However, he did not survive the final, dying breath of the dragon and was incinerated to powder. The party then returned to the pub in a desperate attempt to raise their spirits after such troubling ordeal and debate where to go next. 18. Curses and Caverns. Following the death of the dragon, the party joined Igneous in the pub, but even this reunion couldn't lighten their somewhat doused spirits. Baron Gregory introduced them to an unusual skirmisher, Stu Nicola Nin, a deep-voiced and imposing human woman. However, the lack of payment had left the group's morale at rock bottom, and any conversation was few and far between. This was not improved when a scholar burst through the doors to the pub, crying that they had made a marvellous discovery in the battle against the undead, and that there was hope in stopping the horde. He spoke at length of a golden helmet and a skull totem, and of an ancient seal which could be used to once and for all vanquish the invading undead, or at least prevent more from being raised. The grumpy mood only soured further when it became apparent that this adventure required another trip through the sewers. After genuinely debating the merits of tossing Danny over the wall, the party finally ventured onwards, discovering that beyond the sewers was a cave, and around the entrance to this cave were many, many zombies of all shapes and sizes, blocking their path. Frankie took aim with his powerful staff, but only succeeded in alerting the horde as his fireball exploded in the air like a gorgeous firework. Realising the zombies are now paying them some unwelcome attention, the rest of the party took aim and cut down several undead with their bows and crossbows. Danny Satchel, not to be outdone by his ranged compatriots, charged into the melee, swinging his hammer at the zombies, only for it to fly from his grip and collide with the roof of the cave, becoming wedged and out of the reach of the scrambling Danny. With arrows and bolts flying left and right at the horde around him, Danny was inevitably struck by several friendly fire arrows, piercing both his arms and pelvis before a stray fireball from Frankie took out his leg. After realising that many of his injuries came from the hand of Igneous, Danny cursed to the dwarf that he would ever be haunted by the spirit of Danny Satchel. Frankie tried to save Danny, but instead managed to accidentally hasten his departure from the mortal coil, finding himself another target of the dying accountant's curse. The remaining zombies were eventually cut down, not before many had gorged themselves upon the still twitching corpse of Danny, and the enchanted hammer was retrieved from the roof. The party contemplated what to do with the remains of Danny, and while Igneous and Frankie seemed to twitch like a voice from beyond was screaming at them to leave him be, Danny was quickly looted and his body left amongst the dead as the party continued on. As the party stared into the gloom, Igneous seemed to have had enough of being cursed and commanded the spirit of Danny Satchel to enter the skull of Tyke, which he still carried. Whilst Danny did not approve, he was powerless to resist, and as the spirit of the undead accountant entered the skull, it began to reanimate once more, this time blending the spirits of Tyke, Danny, and the zombie. Upon finding another golden helm and skull totem, the party decided to only take the helm, which, when removed from the pressure plate, opened the hidden door that awaits them now. 19. Fiends and Forget-Me-Nots. The party continued along the tunnel they were in, finding an enormous stone door, barred with an equally heavy slab of stone. Following some creative teamwork, they managed to open the door, revealing a scene of tattered corpses and a long deserted garrison post. Despite the stench of death, the party pushed on, discovering amidst the debris the diary of King Edwin, inked by his scribe. Within the mouldy pages, a tale of valour and corruption was told, with the fate of those whose bones lay scattered nearby, torn to ribbons by tall, thin creatures with long sharp talons and sharper teeth. Armed with the knowledge that these creatures could still lurk in the shadows and respond to movement, the party carefully progressed down the corridor, finding several jail cells with a green glowing rune, before finding another passage leading to a frost-covered grand hall. Descending these stairs revealed another set of stairs leading up to another corridor, only this one was full of the shambling undead. Deciding it best to explore the main hall, the party came across the creatures, as several crawled from the shadows to examine the petrified group, coming mere inches from the still figures before returning to the shadows. Eventually, they came upon a door that depicted a sprawled, massive dragon. A quick examination found a small mechanism unlocked by Frankie sticking his hand inside it and then failing to remove his hand. As the spindly creatures returned, smelling blood in the air, desperation sunk in, and it was quickly decided to amputate Frankie's hand at the wrist. Several swings later, the hapless adventurers scurried inside the chamber, slamming the door behind them as the beasts devoured the left-behind hand. What greeted them inside this stone chamber was the sight of a dragon pinned to the wall by several hundred spikes. The creature appeared to have been long decayed, yet magic pulsed from a necklace, along a chain and into a runestone. Upon the floor lay a crumpled body, with an ancient crown and blessed sword. Igneous shot an arrow into the body of the dragon, which awoke the ancient beast from its weary slumber, pleading for an end to its torment. The party assisted in removing the necklace and then the dragon from the wall. She begged them to bring her necklace to her homeland of Valdari and offered them what magic she had left in exchange, handing them a small bag containing 3 pouches of dust before dying peacefully. Immediately suspicious, Frankie took some from the bag, and while attempting to check it, discovered the dust's rejuvenating properties, restoring his hand once more, and creating bickering, as the rest of the party immediately argued why they should have a pouch. Deciding this was not the place to discuss such matters, they eventually discovered a hidden switch to open the portcullis, revealing an exit. However, those dangerous shadow-lurking fiends were not far away, and the party became separated in their mad dash for the exit. With Igneous and Stu trapped, Igneous summoned his magical rock, Chris, to draw the beasts away. This worked up until the attempt to dramatically close the door just in time failed, leaving Chris behind with the creatures. Determined she wasn't going to leave someone behind, Stu opened the door and swung the holy sword. The creatures, dodging the blow with ease, grabbed the exposed arm and tore it free of her shoulder as the party pulled Chris through the door. Yet this time, Stu was determined to convince everyone that the sword was worth retrieving, and, with Frankie prepped to fill the entrance with fire, they fumbled to pull the arm and sword back through the doorway, but were ultimately successful, despite Frankie receiving a vicious bite. Returning briefly to the city of Arryn to heal up and inform Baron Gregory of their intentions with the necklace, the party have set out for the nearby swamplands of Valdari. Thank you for listening. If you would like to support us, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/Penance RPG and a Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/Penance RPG. Plummet will return as normal next week as we begin the tale of the Troll Fens.